Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am extremely honored to be able to demonstrate to you how the system works and how the initiatives undertaken are transforming our countries. Our national plan, the plan for an emerging Senegal, is all about growth. And UNIDO, with its PCP, has allowed us to get up to cruising speed with this motor force for growth. And thanks to the PCP UNIDO label, Senegal has now become visible on international radars on the wider stage in industrial countries, which wasn't the case very short time ago. The Senegal PCP has meant that we were able to start with the concepts listed in our PSC and go right through to the documentation for completed projects through identifying the key stages in the implementation process and what is required based on best practice at the international level. This has meant we've been able to launch pilot projects which had the effect of accelerating the pace of implementation while providing the required decision-making tools to the Senegalese government. I'm just going to give you 3 case studies, 3 projects of the Emerging Senegal Plan where we have had UNIDO support, which was the determining factor. The first is the international industrial park at Djiby Diagne. Then the second is the so-called agropoles and the industrial policy. First, the industrial park. We really hit the ground running here, but we still were left with all sorts of questions. What was the optimal model for managing the park? What kind of package of incentives could we provide for future investors? And what sort of business plan would maximize the economic return for the government and for the private sector? UNIDO brought us various possible answers to these questions. First, there was the problem of clarity and a certain degree of confusion between the roles of the developer, the regulator, or whatever entity was in charge of the single window approach. The problem was lack of experience in managing an industrial park. So the UNIDO experts showed us various models for management and administration based on similar projects which had been a world-scale success, with a mixed economy, bringing in the private sector and clarifying the roles and responsibilities. And this has meant that we were able to take the necessary structural decisions. As far as the package of incentives is concerned, although Senegal is one of the top 10 best reformers, according to the list in the publication Doing Business, there was a certain lack of clarity, over complex system for the kind of measures, incentives offered to investments. What we realized was that we had to capitalize on what UNIDO could offer to provide real added value by proposing a package of incentives which would be clearly defined while keeping clear what changes were required in the industrial park, in our special economic zone, what these changes would be. And thanks to this support, we have everything we need. And there was a special law passed in 2007, which shortened the journey for investors and made things much more simple. Now, we already have this special economic zone set up with the industrial park inside it. Here, what you see on the right-hand side is the artist's drawing. On the left, you see the actual photos taken during construction. And the government, to show its commitment, mobilized $32 million of public money to manage phase 1. Now, we've moved on to the private sector investment, because it will be the private sector which will be contributing to the management and running of the park. At the beginning of 2016, we will be building on 13 hectares and with the signature of an agreement with one industrial company. They will be building their plant during the first part of 2016 and providing 5,000 direct jobs in doing so. Now the agro-poles, as we call them. The agro-industrial complex is very important for Senegal. We've been working very closely with national experts and UNIDO with field missions going all over Senegal. And this has meant that the specialists were able to understand what types of modules, networks, and zones need to be covered, as well as understanding what sort of public investment was needed with the implementation, including at all times the small producers who are the basis of our agriculture, and helping them connect to international markets. So the report which was produced by these missions all around the country give a factual and scientific basis to take to the government and show what needs to be done if we want this project to be up and running by the beginning of 2016. I can also tell you about 2 industrial projects in our national plan. Of course, there are many more, where it's a question of combining industrial policy with the shared approach which will provide prosperity for everybody, the holistic approach which Professor Stiglitz talked about yesterday. We had support from the teams of Professor Justin Lin, and we are very grateful for Justin Lin's commitment to Senegal. There are 3 sectors where we needed to show what potential was available: horticulture and agro-industries, clothing, and leather products. UNIDO came in and found ways to enhance and build on our national capacity with a national task force set up to work with UNIDO in order to formulate our new industrial policy, which shows how important it is for the government to feel it's an important stakeholder with the support of UNIDO. Now a few words about the kind of challenges we faced. The industrial plan, this emerging Senegal plan, is in itself a huge challenge as we face the Senegal of tomorrow. But the 3 challenges I'd like to talk about are getting higher involvement of the private sector within the framework of the industrial park of Djiby, and this included visits by foreign industrial companies. We had 4 such visits in 2015, and there'll be more next year, and establishing a platform for public-private dialogue to enhance the involvement of the national private sector. The second great challenge we have faced, which we've already mentioned, is that of establishing partnerships and mobilizing resources for the industrial components of Senegal's own plan. And here we established a round table. It was the ministry which did so for 2015, a partner and donor round table, and the establishment of a partner and donor working group for the future as well. Of course, we need you, our partners, internationally speaking, but we also need the private sector to meet the challenges that face us. And I would call upon the international community to follow our example. And the last big challenge we face is acceleration of new legislation. UNIDO could provide a lot of model laws and texts for us to be able to use that wording in amending our new laws and enacting new decrees based on the findings of the technical teams, because we needed a transitional solution while waiting for the enacting of the final legislation, for instance, setting up the special economic zone. But the PCP is the conduit through which information passes back and forth. I thank you.